This is my vegetable garden. At a glance, it looks overgrown, but it's actually nearly empty because I haven't been planting it this season. I've got one bed of garlic that's almost ready to harvest, one row of peas that's just about had it. They're also not a good variety. And a lot of volunteer plants that need to be pulled out. Hey, it's Kate. I hope you're having a great day. What's in the garden today is nothing, and we're gonna fix that. I've already spent some time making a plan, which is always a good idea. And some of this is gonna be a bit experimental because it's getting late for a few things. So to start, I'm gonna finish clearing these beds and add some fresh compost. But we're gonna skip this bed with the peas today because it's falling apart. This bed will need to be replaced this summer, and I'll definitely show you that. But it's an entire project on its own. We don't have time for that today. Okay, let's get started. So it's July now. What am I gonna grow? Well, some of this is gonna be standard summer things, but because I would still like to grow some of the things that I should have planted back in the spring, some of this is gonna be a bit more experimental. So let's dive in. First thing to plant is tomatoes, which is a heat-loving summer crop. Totally typical, so they'll do well. This year, I wanted to grow a variety of cherry tomatoes. My idea was the mixed cherry tomatoes at the grocery store. I wanted to grow that at home. So I've got Sweet Million, a regular red one, Soleil, an orange one, Ildi, a yellow grape one, Sunrise Bumblebee, which is streaked orange and yellow, and Chocolate Pear, which is a dark colored pear-shaped cherry tomato. These should take off really fast once they settle in, and there's also a volunteer from last year's tomatoes, probably a green zebra, which I really enjoyed, so he can stay too. Speaking of volunteers, this very healthy sunflower is unfortunately growing at the front of the bed, but come on, I can't cut that down. Look at it. Next is bush beans, which I'll work in around the sunflower. Bush beans and pole beans can both still be planted even from seed, and they grow fast, so they'll be producing a harvest in no time. These ones happen to be from a 3-color blend. So I watered these in and then got to work making a trellis for the tomatoes. I decided to use things I already had lying around, and I had these 8-foot stakes that I used last year. The idea today is basically these will be tall stakes for the tomatoes, and they'll be tied together at the top to give them more stability. So as the tomatoes grow, I'll tie them to their stakes. And then cucumbers, which are a great warm weather crop, although if it gets too hot, they will stall until it cools down again. I'm a little late getting these planted, but cucumbers grow their fruit pretty fast, so they should be fine. I think the bigger concern is how long they've been in these pots. I have a few varieties here, a couple types of mini cucumbers, and a full-sized one. So fingers crossed they settle in well, and then I can train them up onto the house trellis, which will be great to save space and let me plant the rest of the bed with peppers, a classic heat-loving summer crop. Again, it's getting a bit late to plant these. We should still get some fruit, but they take a long time to grow and ripen. Ripening alone can take between 2 to 4 weeks. These ones happen to be Hungarian cheese blend, which makes smaller fruit. So it won't be a big crop this year, as their season will be cut short. Okay, next is an experimental one, potatoes. But first, we need to harvest what's here from these volunteers. I originally thought I would leave them to continue growing, but they're looking pretty tired, so let's get them out of the way. Ended up with a reasonable harvest, considering I've been mostly ignoring these plants, so they've been underwatered. Okay, on to the basement, where there's more potatoes I've been ignoring. This is what happens when you don't use all your potatoes over the winter and then continue to ignore them all spring until July. These are clearly ready to grow. I just need to give them a chance and get them untangled. I tried to pick out a few that had good juicy sprouts without dried out tips, the ones that looked most likely to grow. So 8 regular ones with good sprouts, and to add to this experiment, 1 long stringy one across the back. My theory is that it should sprout at each of the nodes along the section, making a whole row of plants. And in the back corner, there's a sprout that's lost its potato, which will still grow as long as it's not dried out. So as I mentioned, this will be experimental. Generally, you want to plant potatoes before or around your last frost, and for me, that would have been months ago, but I'm trying anyways. This is going to be an interesting one. I've read that potatoes don't like hot soil and can stop producing if the soil temperatures reach 24 degrees C or 75 Fahrenheit. I don't think that's going to be a problem in my garden, but anything is possible. Also, potatoes take quite a while, depending on the variety, up to 120 days, which from time of planting would be November. And as the days get shorter, they will be growing more slowly. Of course, I can always harvest the potatoes a bit early, so I imagine I'll get something. But these factors definitely add a level of uncertainty. Alright, next is seeds in the long bed. I measured out the row spacing, started making the rows, and now we're ready for rapid fire seeds. So I sowed golden beets, a beet blend, bok choy, carrots, more carrots, a few celery, just a few radish, and a few more, but not too much, Swiss chard, and lettuce mix that I started earlier, which looks like I'll need to replace it very soon. So I watered the seeds in, and then there's really only one empty bed left in the garden, and that's in the back corner. I have a bag of mixed onion sets that needs to be planted. These were not in very good shape and definitely should have been planted earlier. I'll keep the leftovers so I can replace any that don't sprout. And for the rest of the space, let's take a look at my seedling stash. What do I have that needs a home? There's a couple watermelon seedlings that I'll put in the corner. I'm not sure how these are going to fare. Like some of my other plants, they've been in these pots for far too long. And to brighten up this corner, I'll add a few sunflower seeds behind them. Then the very last section, I'll put in more tomatoes. I started far too many tomatoes this year. These ones are Roma tomatoes. Hopefully they'll be for cooking. This corner gets shade early in the afternoon, but it's also a morning sun trap and really warms up. So the tomatoes and watermelon should enjoy the heat as long as they get enough water. They'll also both need a trellis to keep them organized and off the ground, but I haven't figured that part out yet. The garden is as full as it's gonna get today, so I'm gonna keep watering everything in and add some more fresh compost to the back corner. So thanks for coming along with me today, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.